Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Hi, preschool peeps.
Hey, peeps.
We were just saying we were really hoping that people listened to our last episode about pen pals.
It was really good.
We record these episodes ahead of time, so we don't know if anyone has responded yet, but by the time this releases, we might.
That's true.
We might. We were talking in the last episode about bringing back pen pals and having a page on our website where if you log in, you would be able to share that you would like to hook up, I don't know, your class, your child, whoever, I don't even care. With a pen pal, and so go listen to that. We're not going to repeat the episode. What we're talking about today. Look, I can't even spit it out. What we're talking about today.
We're so excited.
I know. I can't even speak. If you thought we were excited about the pen pals, we are talking today at long last with a topic that people are sitting there like, I wonder how they feel about homework. All right, at long last, we're going to talk about homework and some thoughts about it. And remember, folks, that this podcast focuses on early childhood, which the National Association for the Education of Young Children defines as birth to 8 years old. And so that's the focus of our conversation about homework. Children birth to approximately 8 years old, which is like third grade-ish.
Second, third grade-ish. Yeah.
And I just wanted to point that out because often when we think homework, we start to picture middle and high school students. That's not who we're talking about.
That's not who we're talking about.
We're going to talk about the younger kids and our ideas about homework. I struggle with the notion of homework for many reasons, not the least of which is something that I think became just glaringly obvious during this pandemic, which is the lack of equity among the families and the children, the lack of equity, equality, all of the EQ words, EQU words. Yeah. There's a lack there. And I've thought about that in the past as a teacher. You know, if I'm sending this thing home, does everyone have the resources and the ability to do it? And when I'm talking about resources, I'm not talking about, do you have the colored pencils required? I'm talking about, do you have people in your life who can help you with this? Do you have the time in your family's life to do this? You know, are you going home to a situation where the adults may be very busy working and or stressed, stretched tight people who pulled in all different directions? Some kids have the benefit of going home to people and having people who can spend a lot of time with them, going through homework and helping them and correcting them and showing them, and other children do not have that. I think there's just a basic lack of that sort of equity, where we assume that everyone has the same ability to get homework done. I think one of my biggest issues with homework, in addition to that, is that it's that cookie cutter thing we're always telling people not to do. The same homework goes home with the kids, no matter who they are, no matter what their individual interests, abilities, knowledge, and understandings are. Everybody gets this homework sheet. Everybody gets this homework. Too easy for some, too hard for others, boring for some, interesting for others. Takes away from that thing that we've been saying about individualizing early childhood education, so that it's about what the children need to learn and grow as individuals who all come from different backgrounds, different experience, different cultures, different home lives. And then we hand them a cookie cutter thing and say, take this home. I understand the notions why. The notions why are for practice. I shouldn't be introducing new things at home, although I certainly as a student had things sent home. And my parents would say to me, how did you learn this in school? And I would say, we didn't learn it yet. That was frustrating.
That's frustrating. Yep.
Homework isn't it intended to be practice for what they learned in class?
Right. I think also by sending home these cookie cutter things, because we've talked on this podcast before about like worksheets and things like that are not the high quality things. And most of the time when you're sending home homework, it is like a worksheet or a workbook or something like that. And then when we're as teachers telling parents like, oh yeah, we're not going to do worksheets, and then we're sending worksheets home, like, or whatever it might be, you're not,
that's a mixed message.
Yes, and you're not showing the parents how best the children learn. It's just, here's this thing that's a cookie cutter, just by rote, just do it. To me, it becomes busy work rather than something that's high quality practice.
And can we give a shout out to the parents of 2022 who are dealing with so very much. We know you're out there. I hear you. It is a lot for you.
It's a lot
to deal with the issues of our times and raising children. Can we just please cut these people a break and let them spend some enjoyable time with their children, please?
Right. And I feel like that is more important than any practice work I can send home. Like, if I, as a person, value my personal home life time, which I do, okay, then I also need to respect the family's personal home life too, you know. And I feel like it's,
I think we can. I think we can do both. I think, Alison, we can say to families, you know, today we practiced XYZ. Here are some suggestions for how you can practice this. Here are some suggestions. It's not like your child is going to fail because you don't have the wherewithal, the time, the ability,
the ability.
Right. How many things do children get penalized for that are at least in part beyond their control?
I think a lot. Because even I feel like when you send something home like a show and tell thing, which we've had that debate on here too, and the child comes in the next day and doesn't have their thing to share, they immediately get judged because they don't have it. But really, who's, like, maybe they went home and it was a rough night for that parent. Maybe the parent didn't get home until 10 o'clock at night. Maybe, like, you can't put that responsibility on a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, it's not fair to the kid.
They don't earn money. They don't drive themselves to school. They don't, it's, you know, when you think
think
about who are we sending it to? I think we have to think about that. You know, my son is a graphic designer, and he was doing some work for an organization that I belong to. And it had to do with the children of the organization. And he was talking to me about what he was designing. And he said, you know, I understand that it's a child's activity. However, we have to appeal to the adults. They're the one with the pocketbook. They're the one with the earnings. They're the ones who to make the decision. The decision is made by the adults. So anything that we do has to sort of symbolize that it's for children in some way, but it has to be professional enough to appeal to adults. And I feel like homework is very similar in that, who are we sending it to? When we say to children, we're going to teach you to be responsible and we're going to teach you to do homework, that follow through is up to the family. Now, I was a parent who definitely said to my kids, you will do your homework before you go out and play and all that stuff. And I set it up in my home. If a teacher had sent me things that said, here's what we learned in school and here's some suggested activities, I absolutely would have sat down with that and said, let's do one of these activities, or let's do 2 of these activities, and then you can go out and play. And I think it's really reflective of whether the parent has the ability to do that, the time to do that, the wherewithal to do it, and if it's a priority for them. And every family is entitled to their different priorities. We all reap what we sow as parents. Sometimes we need to just go, okay, we're going to give them ideas, suggestions, abilities to do things that are developmentally appropriate, not a worksheet, things that are developmentally appropriate and things they can do to support this learning. And whoever picks up on that, then that's a priority for them. And so be it.
Right. And I think we need to make it, I think that word suggestion is very important in there, because then it kind of takes a little bit of pressure off the parents. It's just a suggestion. Here's a suggestion. It's not mandatory. I'm not going to like ask you to sign anything or send a picture in that you did it. Here's the suggestion. And then they don't have to do it that moment. They might decide, hey, we can maybe play that game or do that activity on the weekend,
Right.
And it'll still reinforce the concepts that you're learning. Or, hey, I can't do that because I don't have the materials, but I do have these materials and I can manipulate this game into what I do have, and then it's not so like this mandatory, like, oh my God, I have to do this or I'm going to get in trouble or my kid's going to get in trouble or my kid's going to get judged. It's just like, no, here it is. Here's what we learned.
And then
here's the suggestion.
We put teaching the children to be responsible. We do send that home in that way because it's up to the parent to determine if their child is going to do any of these suggestions. I want to play the other side though. I do want to play the other side. I understand that homework is supposed to be meaningful practice. And I get that we want to partner with families, and we do want families to know and play a role in what happens in school. We want families to be partners in their child's education. And so part of sending homework home for a lot of teachers is to loop the families into what's being taught in the classroom. I understand that. I think that there's a way that we can loop families in that is maybe a little less cookie cutter and a little less pressure filled. And again, by saying, here are ideas you can do at home. Here are suggestions you can do at home. Here's an activity that connects to what we did today. You decide if you're going to do it or not. We absolutely have to make sure that if we're talking about physical materials like, I don't know, paper, colored pencils, kitty scissors, that we send them home. Make no assumptions.
That they have that stuff.
Right. Absolutely no assumptions. In the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, so many programs told me about the care packages that they were sending home. Hi, folks, they don't have that stuff anymore. So you have to put together care packages, I think, consistently. And I think families need to have a way to order from us for free any supplies that have been used up, broken, otherwise used. The families need a way that they can comfortably say to us, the dog ate the colored pencils. Can you please send more home, and have that be okay? If we want them to have all the things they need to do this.
Absolutely should be that way. But it absolutely is not that way.
I know. Why? If we're
not
figuring
that way.
out, if we're figuring out fundraisers, budgets, whatever, even if we say, okay, we're going to make sure that the supplies that we suggest for home are all dollar store items that I can supply to families. I'm not even going to say to families, you can get this at the dollar store. Well, what if they don't have time to get this at the dollar store? Maybe those dollars need to be spent on food instead.
Yes, I'm not because those dollars add up when you're asking for like 5,000 items.
When I think back about how much I spent.
Have you seen the back to school lists?
Right. When I think back about how much I spent on school supplies when my kids were young, it was a lot, folks. And honestly, sometimes it was a struggle.
And back then, like when we were kids, like it was like, here, go buy some pencils. It was like the list was like pencils, markers, crayons. Now
marble notebook. I had to have a marble notebook.
Oh. Okay. Now it's these specific lists that these teachers want, right? Which I find to be absolutely kind of absurd. Okay. And it's like, no, you need to buy these brand name dry erase markers, these brand name pencils, and it's like, no, but you need crayons here, buy crayons. Like, I don't care what brand they are. Why are you like dictating what brand that these people need to buy when they might not be able to afford it? Because I didn't really send any lists home for kindergarten, there was this big long list. For preschool, I never sent a list home. It was like, bring in extra clothes is what I would say. Like, I never, but for
get us a box of tissues.
A box of tissues, a box of wipes, some sanitary wipes, whatever, some Purell, and extra clothes is what I would ask for. Okay. But then for kindergarten, the list was seriously, I'm not kidding, like there was 100 items on there, and it was like name brand stuff. And I remember I like took all of it away. I was like, just buy any crayons. I don't care if you give me a zip, like if you bring in a Ziploc of crayons that you already have at home, I don't care. They're going in your kid's box at their desk. Like it's not, there's
And
no
same
need to
thing,
dictate.
same
It's like,
thing
it's
for home, same thing for
homework.
home.
Yeah,
But I honestly think that with all that we've learned about the differences between the resources that families have, that there are things we need to supply them with. We need to supply them with whatever we're going to say is going to be part of our list of suggested ideas for them to do at home to connect them to their children's learning and provide practice. Right from the pencils all the way up through the internet and the devices to use the internet. I think this needs to be supplied to families in some way.
I agree with that. Because I feel like that's also part of the problem, especially in our current state of pandemic, is we are assuming that these children have access to the internet, and they may not.
We assume
you're also
a lot of things.
assuming that all the teachers have access to the internet, and they may not. And it's like, we need to get rid of that assumption. And then you also can't get upset when that child doesn't log on, and it might be they didn't log on because they don't have internet at their house. Like it's not, you're not taking into consideration anything that goes on at these people's houses.
So how do we feel about homework then? How would we?
I'm you know how I feel about homework.
Allison is super anti-homework.
I am very anti-homework.
I'm more moderate. I'm
Yeah.
more like, can we please just do it with some compassion and empathy and purposeful meaningfulness in mind? It needs to be meaningful and purposeful, by the way. Don't just send home homework to go, okay, we're requiring that homework is sent home every day with every child, and you got nothing for them to do, but I'm going to just send this thing home because we have to send home homework with every day with every child. No, it shouldn't be that way.
Why are we doing that?
If you're sitting in your,
we're stressing ourselves out like that.
If you're sitting and you're writing lesson plans and you're thinking, I don't know what I would send home for this, then I say just don't. It needs to be meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay a few times a week, maybe, to send home suggestions, maybe even once a week to say, here's what we did this week.
I used to do it once a week on Friday. I used to send home an email every Friday to the parents, be like, here are the concepts that we worked on this week. Here are some suggestions. Done.
Right.
Like I never asked for anything back. I didn't want the papers back or whatever it was back. I didn't want that. I mean,
I also want to give this shout out now that I'm thinking of it. When you said I didn't ask for the papers back, it reminded me of it.
Yeah.
It's, how many times are the children not actually doing it, but the adults are doing it. And it reminded me of when I was in 8th grade, this teacher that I had was just infamous for the social studies project that we were going to be required to do. And people brought in the most elaborate projects. We had to recreate a thing or a scene from history or whatever. So the parents absolutely did it. My father created a wonderful general store for me with little pieces of wood, and we put it all these things were beyond of elaborate, because it was like a contest, because they were displayed. Yeah. So my father, my father got an A on it.
Your father got an A on it. Did you learn anything? I mean, the whole point was,
what I learned? I'll tell you what I learned.
To do it. That the parents are really competitive. That's what I just learned.
Yeah, no, I learned that putting together little model things wasn't my cup of tea. That's what I learned. That assignment didn't really appeal to me, folks. It had nothing to do with my interests or whatever. Also, I really didn't learn anything. I remember at one point, my father was like assembling these tiny pieces of wood with little nails or whatever. And I remember my mother saying, where's Cindy? Where's Cindy? Shouldn't she be in here while you're doing this? And my father would be like, you're just going to sit here while I do. It was this assignment. I'm telling you, this guy was infamous for it. And I think of a lot of homework that way. Like, how much effort is being put forth by the parents versus the child, or whoever's raising the child, not necessarily parents, by the grandparents, the babysitter, whoever it is. Yeah. We had an episode where we said, don't use parents, and now I'm using it.
Here we are.
Sorry, folks. I tend to have these, in writing, I will do the right thing, but aloud I slip. And I know maybe y'all can relate to that.
Yeah.
Who knows how much the work reflects what the child can actually do or what the adult can actually do.
Yeah.
And that's sort of homework for me has always been a little bit sketchy in that way as a teacher, that I even in the early childhood years, and I taught kindergarten for a little bit too, I would send things home and get them back. And I would be like, yeah, I don't see evidence that this child can do this when in my class, but look at this perfect thing
Perfectly done. Yep.
that came back.
And there are entire districts around our country that have eliminated homework as a district. So, yes. So there is something to this. I think I'm onto something here.
I
See?
think you are, but we gave ourselves enough homework with the pen pal thing. That was our
Oh
homework.
yeah, that's my homework.
That was
but
our
I'm so
homework for a
excited
while
to
there.
do that one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited to link people together. So yeah.
So, I feel like this one, we're not going to give ourselves homework.
No,
What I would love to know, if you would like to contact us with it and give us permission to share with our listeners, sometimes we do a feedback 5, and you could hear your name over the podcast, is let us know, how do you handle those connections with families? How do you send things home in a way that you think is pretty equitable and the people are able to do it or not? And what is your wording and what sort of things do you send home? That's what I would love to know.
Yeah.
Our website and our Facebook page are both called what the podcast is called, How Preschool Teachers Do It.
Yeah, we're easy.
.com or podcast.
Yeah.
Podcast on Facebook. So please find us and let us know, and we would be happy to maybe share your ideas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good networking.
Right.
That's my new word. I feel like I've used it in like 3 episodes.
I think you might. Everybody go back and listen, and let's see how many times Alison used.
How many times has Alison used networking and don't do homework?
If you haven't already checked out on our website the pages that you log in to see, please do that. We are posting blog article and video, and you can comment on the blog articles and watch the videos. The videos are very, very short. Not even as long as this podcast, so go and enjoy.
Yeah, it's fun in there.
Catch you next time.
Bye. Bye, peeps.